So here we go. But again, my name is Mike Coles, and I'm with Choose Your Reader. And so obviously with these presentations, you're here to find out, what's the big idea, right? So before we get too far though into what is the big idea, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing law for 20 years, just over 20 years. But I'm also a screenwriter. And so I've been writing screenplays for about 5 years. And then recently I became a children's book author. Now, if you hear those three things, you think that means that really doesn't connect at all. And I understand that, but the truth is I'm a storyteller. Whether I'm telling a story to a jury, or if I'm telling a story for a screen or in written form, it is all about a narrative. And that's what I do, and I'm very proud of my skills in telling a story. But I am more proud of the fact that I'm a dad. And so I've been a dad for just over 7 years now, and I've really enjoyed blending that storytelling ability with being a father. But I'm also a divorced dad, so I'm not with my son every day, every night, and that's something that I missed. And that is what got me to this big idea, okay? So, tell you a true story. So I had my son here, and he said, "Dad, tell me a bedtime story." And I went to the bookshelf, and he said, "No, make one up," right? Now, he doesn't know that I'm a storyteller, so this is my sweet spot. So I said to him, "Give me 3 things you want in your story." And he said, "A golf ball, a soccer ball, and a baseball." Right? And so that night I told him from good to bad to great for the first time. Now he loved the story, and if you know kids, right, they want to hear the same story again and again. So now I got to write it down because I didn't remember, I just made it up. So I start writing these stories down as I'm working with him, and he's giving me 3 ideas. And then the next thing you know, he says, "Dad, where are the pictures?" All right, so I'm a storyteller, I am not an illustrator. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. And in that process, I went ahead and decided to get the story illustrated. That is from good to bad to great. But now I've got these books that I've written, and I've had them illustrated, and what am I going to do with these books? And so I'm going to send them off to a literary agent and hope that in 10 years somebody picks up the book and decides to publish it. That was option 1. Option 2 was self-publish, right? But that means go on the road and do all these different events trying to get people to buy my book, which means I'm taking myself away from my son, and the point of the stories was to bring me closer to him. And that is where I got the big idea, because I realized that the story should be bringing me and other people closer together, right? So it's not just for this moment of saying, aha, I'm not just the divorced dad who's going to have this book, but actually there are a lot of other people who could benefit. If you're a grandparent that doesn't live with the kid, if you are someone that's in the military, you travel for work, or if you work late at night and you want to read a bedtime story to a child, how do you do that? And so how you do that is Choose Your Reader. So, let's take a look at Choose Your Reader in action. I'm going to run you through this video. So basically, this is a live app. You can log in, you go and you say, I want to pick a story. There's from good to bad to great. When you select the story and you press record, your phone will actually record your voice reading. And if you pay attention, you'll see that the words are being highlighted just like karaoke. So if you can do karaoke, whether it's bad or good, right? If you're singing these off, like mine, as long as you understand how karaoke works, you understand how Choose Your Reader works. It's recording your voice as you go along. The child's experience with this is very much the same as yours, except they're hearing your voice sync to the words instead of reading to the words. So the beauty of that is we're also working with literacy as well as with relationship building with children. And so my son can now read far better than I did when I was his age, partly because he has been working through this as we've been testing it. So now what you'll see is you go page by page, you can record a page over. If the doorbell rings or you get a phone call, you're not stuck with that in the middle of your story. You can go back and re-record that page. I'm going to jump to the end, so you're not going to get all of from good to bad to great. You have to go to the app to see it. But you save the story. Now it is stored locally to your device. All right. Now once it's stored, you can go and select it, and you can share it via email. Right, and so an email pops up here, and you'll see that this email is populated, and it shoots it right out to the adult on the other side, whoever is with the child. Alternatively, you can go through your contacts and send a text, and you can send that story via text. So no matter where you are, no matter where the child is, if there's an adult with a cell phone, they're going to be able to use Choose Your Reader. So where are we in this process? We launched the beta on January 1 of this year, and as of this weekend, we are in full launch mode. So that means that you can go to the App Store, download it, check it out. Love to have your thoughts on it. People ask, what's the revenue model? There's a no revenue model in place right now. For quarter 2, it is free. All right, we're talking about 20 stories on the app for you to use, download, send it, do whatever you'd like, free of charge, no cost whatsoever. So, but after that, we're gonna move to a subscription model, roughly $5 a month. So, I've been doing this, some of the people who are organizers know I've been doing this for a couple of months now, speaking to other 1 Million Cups. My very first presentation, I was setting out some goals back in January for this first quarter. So I'm giving you an update as to where we are. So my goals were I wanted to have a patent for this, and so we have filed our patent application. That was filed in February. 20 stories is what I wanted for the app. We are at 28 and 5 are in production, so we're gonna hit just over 30 by the end of April. 2 languages is what I wanted the app to provide. We're in 3 languages in 150 countries today. That also, we have categories. That's because I wanted you to be able to go through and find the different stories and not just have to scroll endlessly. So much like Netflix experience, we've got the stories broken into categories for you. So how can you help? A couple of things. One, download the app, right? If someone's gonna go and hear about the app and they see that it's got 9 downloads, that's not as inspiring as it would be if it's got a few more than that. So the more downloads you give me, that's great. And certainly 5-star ratings are even better, so I like that. And then share the app. Let people know that you've heard it. If you have kids, if you don't, if you know people with kids, let them know that there's this app out there that they can use as a grandparent, as a parent, aunts, uncles, what have you. Remember, it's free, right? So, people ask, what is Choose Your Reader? Is it a tech company? Is it a content creator? Is it a content publisher? And I'm proud to say that, yes, we are all of those things. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Choose Your Reader.
So what is the specific questions do you like to be answered today?
The questions that I would like to answer.
You have one challenge.
Your challenge.
My challenge question. All right, the Choose Your Reader challenge. I need to find people that do one of these 3 things, right? Any one of those 3 things. So first, school administrators. One of the things that we're looking at is white labeling the product and giving that to school districts to particularly use in an ESL environment. Because if you think about students who don't speak English as their first language, when they go home, they often do not get English over weekends, breaks, summers, etc. So we want to be able to let school districts use that so teachers who are overworked as it is can record a story once and throughout their career send these stories out anytime they want to give young readers, early readers, and ESL students access to English and storytelling and literacy instruction at home. That's one. Number 2, authors. The books so far are written by me, but I've also been mining the public domain, but sooner or later my creativity runs out. And so authors who have books that they'd like to have a wider distribution, again, we're talking today 3 languages, 150 countries. By the end of this year, 10 languages at the same time. So we're talking about a very wide net. And then the last thing is grant writers. So we're looking at opportunities to do some educational grant writing so that we can look at some other revenues and help us to develop and push this model further.
Thank you very much. So anybody has a recommendation, question? Yes.
So, I'm also in education. So, I recommend that you reach out to PTs. I also can connect you to a couple of the PTs that I work with and do a book talk to them and introduce this to them.
Yeah.
That would be a great way to kind of test it out and get started.
That's fantastic. Thank
You can say the name of your company and, sorry.
And one more thing, also connect with Fairfax County Library System. They have this going on, a lot of book talks, things like all kind. So, I don't know anybody there in particular, but you can go walk to the library and they will connect you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jess.
Dick Morrell, US Stamp. What is your end game? Are you in this to build this and make it you for the foreseeable future, or do you have an exit strategy, or what is your plan?
Yeah, so short term, no exit, right? I want to be in this because I still think that there's a lot that can be done. There's some other design ideas that I've got that essentially I want to see this get moving. 5 years from now, when we are more mature, right? I've got my own law firm, right? I've been practicing on my own for 15 years last month. I didn't know that I'd go 15 years in my own law firm, and so I can't imagine how long I'll go with this. I'm certainly building it with the understanding that one day I'm likely to sell it. That is very much an understanding that I've got, but I don't know that I have a commitment as to when that might happen.
Right. So the follow-on to that is, I think you need to consider scaling what you need in order to scale this, as it helps define your end game. Because to your point, you eventually will run out of content unless you suddenly become the most prolific children's writer in history.
Right.
But being able to have that content and be able to keep it fresh and exciting is something you want to figure out. It's like, okay, how does that play out relative to the recommendations?
I think that's a good point, yes.
Thank you
I
very
agree with
much.
that.
Jen,
I thought Jen
Jen.
was next.
Jen.
Jen.
By the way, please, if you
Sorry.
have any comments or recommendations, write it out. We'll give it to him, so don't forget to write your comments or recommendations.
Two quick questions. I know you created the story of your son. First of all, I love the concept, so great job presenting.
Thank you.
Can individuals create and submit their own content? Like, could I write my own story? And if I drew pictures with my kid on the iPad, can I also upload my own pictures to Illustrated?
All right, so first question, can you submit your own story? Yes, with the understanding that every story that's on the app is available to everyone, not just to someone that you might send it.
So there's no way to hide that.
No, and so specifically what happens is so on our website, chooseyourreader.com, you go to the website and there's a page to upload your story for my review group to actually review and determine if the story is appropriate for the wide distribution that we're intending. If it is, then we actually acquire it through a license on an annual basis, and then it's available to everyone. For illustration purposes, if you choose to illustrate it yourself, and again, I have a group of people that review that. If it's reviewed and accepted, your illustration goes in there. For people who are like me and cannot illustrate, or at least don't believe that that's a useful way to spend their time, we have a group of illustrators that we've used and worked with, and so we essentially assign you an illustrator. And so it works very much like a traditional publishing environment, except it's super accelerated. Instead of 18 months to get in one bookstore, it takes us 60 days to get in 150 countries.
So second question, how are you, or are you, paying authors who submit content?
Absolutely paying authors on an annual license, yes. So they give us the book for the app, and we pay them one time at the beginning of the year, and that's a 12-month license that we have, and each year so one of the things I tell people is I'm a lawyer, I'm a father, and I'm a writer, and I developed this to satisfy me in all three ways. And so as an author, I want to be able to say that I should negotiate next year, because if this thing becomes huge, I don't want to get this paltry amount of money that I might be offered on the front end, right? So I'm only signing 1-year licenses right now, so that if we expand and grow and revenue supports a larger payment to an author, I'm absolutely happy to do that.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Have you approached any publishing houses yet? Because my larger question goes to how are you, obviously you've just launched in the past 3 days. So have you approached the publishing houses in a partnership where you perhaps can have them upload existing children's books into the system, be a part of this, as opposed to what they're using on Amazon, like just the regular voice stuff?
Right. So there's an organization called the Independent Book Publishers Association, and so their big conferences this coming weekend, and so I'll be there as a sponsor for that event, and that's exactly what I'm doing, is working with independent book publishers to get that content. I'm not actually moving to some of the larger publishing houses, frankly, because of the size and scale in terms of who's the giant in the room and who has the bargaining position is not me. And again, I'm satisfying my need as a lawyer to understand leverage and negotiating positions. So I'd rather negotiate with people who are on similar footing. And so I'm doing that with independent book publishers. But once we've got some traction and some name recognition, I'm certainly prepared to then make that next step to go to the larger publishing houses.
Because that's where I see your critical explosion is. You'll start putting up known popular books.
That's right.
That a grandparent would love to just read to their child, have them send it to their tablet, and do it from there. So yeah.
You got it exactly right.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Russ McIntosh, Vision Idea Design. About 20 years ago, my daughters are in their early 20s now. I had the same epiphany and wrote several books for my daughters and started my own publishing company. Granted, I was doing graphic designs, comic books, and so it's a little bit different format. But I was accepting other writers and stories to be submitted as well. Do you have a criteria for writing stipulation for children? Because I had one specifically for kindergartners and younger, one for 5th grade or 5-year-olds on up to 8th grade, and had different criterias for each aspect. Do you have that same thing with your children's readers?
So it's not explicit, sort of a written out, but I have an advisory board. There's a child psychologist, one linguistics professor, another professor of creative writing, and then a school teacher, and so I've got a minister, right? So I've got these people who are part of my advisory board, and so they are the ones that review content, and frankly are the ones that reviewed the content before I even got to this idea, because I was writing these stories for my son, and I thought, well, I don't even know these are good, right? They're satisfying a 5-year-old, but you know, that's a low hurdle. But then you realize maybe not such a low hurdle. 5-year-olds can be pretty demanding. So basically, using that advisory board, they are the ones that review the material along with me and make sure that what we're getting is really sort of on brand, right? And on message for what we're doing as an app and as a company.
Thank you very much, Mark.
I was curious to know, Mayosha Mendes with the T Center. What is the difference between yours and the Kindle version?
Sure. So if you're looking at Kindle, what you do not get is mom, dad, grandma, grandpa's voice reading to you. So it's literacy combined with relationship building. And so even if you're looking at Audible or Kindle or any of the other sort of platforms out there for e-readers and digital books, none of them are relationship building combined with the literacy component that we're bringing together.
Okay. Yes.
Great stuff. I have a couple of grandchildren in Okinawa, and so I can see putting this to use immediately. But of course, I always want everything I could possibly have. Is it in your vision for your technical platform to be able to include video along with the presentation of voice? I'm curious if that's in your plans yet, and if not, what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, it is explicitly not in my plan, and so I've thought of that. The concern that I have for video, again, the 3 hats I wear as a father, what video does is it actually undermines the literacy component that I'm trying to bring to the table, right? Part of it is the video, the movement that catches your eye should be the words. If you know about how kids learn to read, they learn by pointing at the word typically, and so in order to achieve that, that's what I'm actually doing. Let's see, I
Went to sleep mode.
So that's what I'm doing, is really trying to push literacy. And so video, I think, is detracting from that. And so I've explicitly decided not to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if you covered this yet. You mentioned that, okay, obviously, school departments, it's different various kinds of school departments that you're targeting, right? So have you figured out how you're going to approach strategy in terms of selling it, for lack of a better term, or going to market with it?
Yeah.
Who to talk to, how to present it, how to, and there's several different ones. There's Fairfax, there's Loudon, there's Alexandria. Are you going to approach it from that perspective? Are you going to go the private school route? Are you going to do both? And then how are you going to grow that regionally or geographically? Are you going to put the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C.,
Just Nova or whatever.
Nova and MDV, whatever.
DMV.
DMV, thank you. So I'm just trying to understand that.
So bigger than that.
Okay.
So let me start off by saying that I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
Went to school at Duke in North Carolina. Started my practice in Texas, Dallas. Right. So I'm a pinball, right? I just bounce all over. Well, as I'm going to this conference for the independent book publishers, basically there's a school technology conference. And so we applied for that. It's in Philadelphia in June. We applied for that, and just literally 5 days ago got accepted as one of their startup presenters. And so it's a massive conference in Philadelphia, school administrators who are looking at and interested in technology in the classroom. So June 23rd, I'm in Philadelphia presenting this to people and saying, this is an opportunity for you to do that. There's another, so if you know about textbooks, Texas is a large consumer of textbooks in America and tends to drive textbooks in terms of what's nationally available because of their buying power. Well, there's another conference that is specific to the state of Texas. It's in Dallas coming up in September, so we'll be there presenting to that market as well. So I'm looking at big opportunities to get in touch with hundreds of school districts at one time. And then I just spoke to, I guess that was Monday night, so I just spoke with someone who's interested in becoming a salesperson in that role to basically support that by being the person that does all the follow-up, because I can only do so much, right?
Sure.
When you talk about scale, I can only do so much. So now I'm looking at bringing on that salesperson coming up in June, so that we can go to the conference, meet people, collect those relationships, and then start to build the rapport that's going to be needed for me to walk into a room and do a presentation that says, Choose Your Reader is a way for you to maximize parent-student engagement with the teachers in your school district.
Thank you very much. Let me see in the back, yes?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're starting to get a lot of visibility. Are you gonna be seeking a seed round anytime soon?
I will do.
No. So very straightforward. I am self-funded and debt-free at this point, and I intend to stay that way if I can. I do not intend to give equity or seek any outside funding, VCs, angels, none of that, if I can make it without it. Now, I'm not entirely resistant to it, but I understand that equity is the most expensive kind of debt, right? So if I can avoid that kind of debt as long as I can, and the more mature that I am when I enter that relationship, then the more value I get for the different equity dollars that might come to the table.
Thank you, Jen.
Just one or two thoughts. I love your product. The logo and the name don't necessarily work for the two segments you're talking about and your value proposition. So for example, Choose Your Reader doesn't really speak to either value proposition. For grandparents reading, it does in the sense that I would love my grandfather to read to my kid, whatever, right? But it doesn't speak to that as clearly as maybe it could. It definitely doesn't speak to the ESOL piece. So my question would be, have you thought about having a second app that's literally a copy paste, but rebranded something different? Because that's a very different problem we're solving, and people won't download or find Choose Your Reader if you're trying to learn English because it's not gonna pop up in the App Store. Just a thought.
No, so to your point, the goal for the sort of what I'll call academic environment is for it to be a white label app. So it would be the Fairfax County Schools literacy app. I don't care what they call it, but yes, absolutely a copy and paste. Their logo on it, it's all about them, but it's essentially riding on my entire platform, and they're licensing that from me. So that would be the expectation that they would say, you know, download our app, you're in our school district now.
Perfect. Tony?
So this is going to the marketing, because obviously what your plan is at this point is to market it the most effective way. You said it in the opening statement, your target readers are grandparents. Have you approached AARP or any of the other senior organizations about partnering? Now, not selling to them, partnering with them, where what they do is for a piece of the overall pie, they assume the marketing expenses and the marketing effort, and they push it out to their members. And now this goes out to all the senior citizens, everybody over the age 55 or whatever, who are getting AARP notifications. I know I get them. Yes, I'm old, and I don't have any grandkids yet. I ever will, but they get this material every day, and they sit there and look through it. They get it online and everything else. By working out a partnership with them, now what's happening is you're not burdening any of the expense or any expenses of marketing. They're doing all the marketing. In exchange, they're getting a cut to put it up onto their website for these people to download and access the app. Have you thought about that at all?
So I had not thought of it in the way that you're structuring. I like your idea better, because my idea was a very sort of standard approach. Hey, let me pay for an ad in your magazine or a mailer from your mailing list of members. So no, I had not considered it the way you're pitching it. I like that idea.
Because they'll have the incentive to move forward with it. They may move forward slowly, more of a pilot to see what the response is. If it catches on, what they'll do is, because they're now making money off of the app, they'll start pushing it out more, and now they look like they're the heroes, because here are all of these grandparents who are now downloading the app and getting on board with this. And by doing it that way, the grandparents can push, they already are using it. And then they can spread the word, disseminate that out to their kids, their grandkids in the schools. And now what's happening is you're creating a demand on the other side. Instead of having salespeople going around to all the school districts, now what's happening is the grandparents are going to the school saying, "Why aren't you doing this?"
No, I love that. That's a great idea.
Yes.
Similar area of question. A lot of entrepreneurs come forward, especially if they can self-fund, and say, I really like this idea, this is a great thing, I'd love to have had this. What have you done to see what the receptivity is for this functionality in the marketplace?
So when we did our beta January 1 and launched that, it had a little bit of distribution. What we were looking at is usage and how much people were actually receptive to it, and the response was very, very strong, which got me to decide to sort of double down on that. So now our marketing strategy is we have some social media influencers, mom and dad types, who are essentially using it now as we speak, and are then going to give me feedback, and hopefully through that same process, push that to the people who are subscribers to their various social media channels.
Yes.
Katie Nelson, Sales Uprising, and I actually just want to bring up something to Tony's point. That would, depending on how it goes with AARP, it can also be done in military organizations, right? And it can be taken to SHRM. So when you're talking about workplace culture and parents that are working, you know, maybe not so 9 to 5, right? If you're a pharmaceutical salesperson, it's a cultural benefit to be able to have this in your workplace organization.
Yeah, so the military idea I've absolutely looked at, and the guy that I've got working with me on the marketing is looking at ways to connect to some of the spouses groups for military families. But I had not, so I've been a member of SHRM. I'm an employment lawyer by trade and training. So SHRM is an organization I know I had not considered them as an outreach opportunity for the app, so I appreciate that. That's good.
Yes.
Just to clarify something, you're saying that you want the grandparents to record the book that you have written. Am I understanding that correctly?
So some of the books are public domain works. I have Cinderella, I have Snow White, Rumpelstiltskin, but some of them are, you know, from good to bad to great, totally created by me. So there's both. Okay,
so the parents then record those, and that's so that they can, even if they're not there, the kids can listen to what and with their voice.
That's right.
great, yeah.
Or frankly, even if they are there and they just need a distraction for the child, right? If you're on a plane or in a car ride for your summer trip and you just want the kid to be distracted by something, but you don't want to have to deal with, you know, the wheels on the bus go round and round in the car stereo, right? Well, here's an iPad or what have you, and you give it to the kid. And one of the things that I was concerned about when I created this was the issue of screen time, right? That's a big issue today. But what the research has shown is that screen time is not the question. It's what activity are you doing when you're using screen time. And so as we push a more educational component, that's important, right? Screen time becomes less of a negative and more of an asset. And so the idea is that it's not just distance. It's sometimes just you need the kid to be distracted, or you want the kid to have something else, or perhaps you want the kid to learn a language. My son speaks English, Spanish, and Mandarin, right? So he's 7. You can get that level of education through this platform in addition to, because no one else in my family speaks Mandarin or Spanish, right? So that's an important component in this process. It's not just I'm not there. Sometimes it's I'm not able to give you what it is that this can do in addition to, you know, the literacy component.
Okay, I want to remind everybody to write the comments so he can have it. Anybody else? Yes? So we almost, yes?
First of all, I like your Dan Linder Golden Rule, how much about you. I like your presentation style. It definitely pulls people into what's he going to say next, right? So you, coupled with the presentation format you use is very good. And I also liked your answer about not including video, and you have a very good answer for that. When it comes to, you said you put this out in beta, can you share any of the metrics as far as adoption, the number of sessions, and how that's been so far?
Yeah, so I made, with one caveat, is I made a decision not to watch the pot boil. So I only looked at metrics at the end of a month, and I have not yet looked at the post-March metrics. So I can tell you post-February metrics only. So we had about 100 downloads of people that I was sort of in my own network, and maybe one step beyond that network. We don't count them as sessions, but we count them as shares. Right? Because essentially, if you record a story once, you can share it 1,000 times. So in the beginning model, it was a paid model, where I actually said I need to test my ability to do revenue, and I didn't like that. And so that's why, I've moved to free now to expand the universe of users without any barriers. But I'm also moving to subscription faster than I anticipated. I thought I would be in subscriptions in 2020. but my content speed is a lot faster in terms of production and creation and acquisition. But to your question, we had about 100 downloads. We had about 70, not quite 75 shares. And that's all I can tell you in terms of, I don't know, how many times they heard the book. I don't know that.
Thank you very much. I will have a last question.
Well, I have two questions. One, have you thought about doing it where you have advertisers,
You mean in-app advertising?
in-app advertisers, so it can be free to the individuals?
So I've considered that, and I am absolutely not interested in advertising to my own son, so I'm not going to advertise to yours.
And my second question is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you?
Yeah, I mean, really, these three things, if you know someone who's in school administration, part of one of the things, and I'm not sure who asked that question, but I have yet to present to a school administrator. And so I'd like to try that and have them
What is a
ask.
school administrator? What do you mean by that?
Literally anybody who is above a teacher position. So principals, people who work at the school board level in terms of curriculum, who are in the school district offices, superintendents, anybody who's in what I would call a leadership role in education where they work is an interesting person for me to pitch to, even if it's just practice, right? I want to hear, one of the things that I love about 1 Million Cups is that you guys give me questions that I hadn't considered. And so I want that same opportunity with school administrators before I hit the floor in Philadelphia, right? I don't want to walk in there for the first time and meet a school administrator who's going to say to me, well, have you considered, section 145, and now you're drinking from a fire hose. I'd like to get in front of people who are going to give me the faucet treatment before the fire hose.
And really quickly, when's your presentation in Philly?
I'm sorry?
When's your presentation?
It's June 23rd, I believe.
I'm not gonna do it.
So let's give Choose Your Reader a round of applause. We have around 12 of these, but we're going to add to your collection so you'll have
30 days in a month.
And thank you very much, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause. So first and foremost, thank you for coming out to our event. As you can see, by helping Choose Your Reader, there's a lot of people that got a lot out of, basically being able to help yourself. And so, if you're interested in presenting, go to 1millioncups.fairfax.com and apply to present. We're also looking for organizers. If you're interested in being an organizer with 1 Million Cups Fairfax, let us know. Go see Jen Knockmany, and she'll send you through the fire hose.
It's not that bad, really, I promise, it's not that bad.
No, we actually have a great group of organizers, and it's really fun helping out entrepreneurs. Real quick, before we close out everything, does anyone have any events that they want to talk about that's coming up here in the near future?
Tonight, the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce is having a networking event at Tandoori Nights from 5:30 to 7. Everybody's invited and welcome.
All right.
The Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a breakfast on April 11th. Charles Mann, formerly of the Reston Redskins, is the keynote speaker. I'm part of the membership committee, so let me know if you would like to attend. Send me a note, Dan Lunder at Golden Rule, and I'll be glad to send you information about the program.
On April 25th, here at Office Evolution at 8:30 in the morning, I am hosting a 4-hour workshop called Powerful Client Attraction because clients mean cash. There's information on postcards.
Anyone else?
So not to keep it going on Reston Chamber, but on May 7th, Reston Chamber is putting on the 7th annual Reston B2G Trade Show and Expo, which is for businesses who want to do business with the government and other larger government contractors. It will be over at the new Inova Conference Center in Falls Church, or Merrifield, or wherever you want to call it. It's kind of like a little ambiguous, but it's across the street from Fairfax Hospital, so that's a landmark for you. They're looking for and still have openings for expo tables if your business wants to do business with government and get a expo table, or just to attend and do matchmaking with other government contractors and the government agencies.
All right.
And our
We have 2 events coming up. On April 18th, we have a breakfast
first event with 40 to 50 business people. And also, I'm happy to announce that on May the 17th, we will be celebrating our 15th anniversary. So that will be a business expo with 50 exhibitors, 200 business people, 7 experts, food, beverage, door prizes, a full-blown party. There will be fireworks and there will be lions coming to the roof. If you see that proof. So if you don't see them being in the city, don't blame me. And I'd love to have you there at both events, and we still have some booths available about 8. So I'm definitely looking forward to having you there. All right. Thank you very much.
If you can do me a favor and pass your cards, if you're on this side to your left and on this side to your right, so we can get them in the center. Thank you very much for coming out. I also want to let you guys know, May 1st and May 1st only. May 1st and May 1st only. May 1st and May 1st only. We will not be presenting here. We will be at the Fairfax EDA office on 8300 Boone Boulevard.
Just up the street.
Right up the street.
Conference Center.
Say that again, please.
Lobby level conference. Center.
Lobby level conference center.
What day is that?
May 1st.
May 1st.
May
Thank you for coming
How
out.
often is that gonna happen?
It's only going to happen once.
Doesn't have anything of real value.
For now.
For now.